Hello and welcome everyone to the Africam show. I couldn't be happier with our start. We are at my personal favorite, at least, the old Donyo camp to start us off. When you have a pair of giraffes. This camera is just stunning. Anyway, welcome aboard. I'm so happy to be with you. And remember, as always, we're always live and we're always wild here, and that means that you can send through your questions and your comments. I love to hear from all of you. And if this is the first time that you're joining us, this is an opportunity to go through the different cameras, but with a guide at your side. And today, that guide is me, Trishala, your resident ranger, to answer any questions that you may have, or even if you'd like to tell me if you have a cup of coffee, as we usually do. Now, for myself, I've actually had a really busy day, so this is a really nice way to decompress, spending time in the African bush with all of you, and getting to talk about the things that I love most, the natural world. Anyway, our giraffe has now moved off, so we're going to head over to the Black Eagle camp. Now that white speck, the very bright white speck that you're seeing there, is the little chick. Now its parent was there earlier, but I see they've left this little one on its own, for now at least. Now whenever I look at this chick, not just this chick, we've been lucky enough, not just us, but this area, the Walter Sisulu Gardens, this area in itself, has been so lucky to have seen generations of chicks come out here. Many, many clutches that we've seen. And each time I see them, I think, gosh, this chick is so stark, such a stark white, such a great contrast to the rest of the environment. And there's very few things that are really black or really white out in the natural environment. There's always variations. Now, when it comes to birds, you can get some really, really white whites and really, really black blacks. And yes, there is a difference. Black is not just black. You get some really black blacks. And it all depends on how much light is either being reflected or absorbed. So if 90% of the light is being absorbed, that's a proper black. If 90% is being reflected, it's a proper white. And when I see white like this, look at you picking up your head. When I see white like this, I think, oh, it's so obvious. So obvious to any potential threat. But in fact, it's not as obvious as we may think. It could just look like a spot reflecting light. And especially if we think about where black eagles nest, or rose eagles more correctly, they nest high up on cliffs. So if a potential threat like another raptor, another predatory bird comes along, they're just going to see a speck of white, a speck of really reflective, perhaps even rock, like a rock face reflecting the sun. So for the black eagle, this works really, really well. And I love thinking about it because it brings together two things that I love. Why animals are the way they are, and color. I love color. Anyway, I went on a rant quite quickly today. My apologies. Didn't even get to say hello to everybody or get hellos from all of you. Rolling Trouble, you say hello from Washington. Coffee and water on hand. Love it. Jirel, I hope that you're going to tell me how big your smile is. Let's see. You say, hurrah, Wildlife Tuesday. Hello to Trishala. And there we go. You're sending virtual smiles from Toronto. And yes, you're enjoying a cup of Java while you wait. Awesome. Andy, you say, good afternoon. Thank you, Andy. You're also wishing me a wonderful time at the Wild Screen Festival. Thank you so much. I'm going to keep all of you in my back pocket while I go on that adventure and keep you all up to date. It promises to be something really enriching. And hopefully I can come back with exciting stories, but most importantly, more information and better ways to tell you exciting wildlife and species stories. So thank you very much, Andy. It's really special to me. Thank you. Gemma, you say, good day all, getting your tea ready for the show. Nice, Gemma. What type of tea will you be having? Dear NC, you say, good morning, you're ready with your coffee. Timber Grace, hi Timber Grace, you say, good morning from a smoky, ozony Minneapolis. And then Rolling Trouble, you say, so floofy. So floofy indeed. Anyway, while we give the Black Eagle Cam a little bit of TLC, we've moved over now. I'm looking at these different landscapes. So obviously the majority of the cameras are in South Africa, then we've got Tembo in Zimbabwe, and then also Aldonyo in East Africa. So there's going to be slight variation in the habitat, but overall they're quite similar. But that being said, when I say quite similar, I mean savanna with a fine-leaved or broadleaf, but it's savanna in a broad sense. But I love looking at the difference in soil, color, and texture. Here we've got the really light-colored, mineral-rich soil. So when we see a specific color with soil, so sometimes, Madikwe is a really good example because in Tau, the soil is really white, like we see right here, and it's really mineral rich. We're heading across. But if you look at the mountains there, it's quite red, and that's different types of minerals. So there we're looking at high amounts of iron oxide. And I love thinking about the different colors. And sometimes when you think about the geology, we think, oh, it doesn't really affect what's happening everywhere else, like, in terms of the wildlife. But in fact, it really does. Because those soil types will affect the vegetation. The vegetation will affect what types of species we get in the area. Everything from arthropods to the mammals. And then if we're looking at prey species, those densities will also affect the predatory species. Rolling Trouble, that is an excellent question. You'd like to know when and why is black and white called pied? I don't know, to be very honest. I think it might just be a linguistic thing, because, you would ask this question because you know that we use pied for black and white. But exactly why and how it came to be, I don't know. And now you've asked this question, it's making me think, so I'm going to figure it out. And also, like you said, when as well, not just why. Because we're looking at these zebra now, and they're also black and white, right? But we don't call them pied, whereas we call a pied crow a pied crow, kingfisher as well. I'm going to find out. I really want to know now. I recall trying to figure it out at one point and realizing it was not a biological thing, but I can't be specific right now. I can't remember what it was that I read. But I'm going to bet it's some kind of, linguistic thing that's going on there. Amber Cole, welcome on board. You say hello all, thanks to Explore and Africam and to be for another special time. Thank you for joining us, Amber Cole. You're always on board. So when I started to think about, well, a little bit earlier, I was telling you about where the different cameras are and the different types of essentially similar ecosystems, but there are like differences, like the soil type, so the geology is quite different and that affects the trees, etc. And the other thing I'm looking at is the color right now. I'm thinking about differences in habitat environments, and now that we're well and truly in winter, I'm really starting to see that. As most of you know, and if you don't, I'll tell you now, we had a really good rainy season, really good wet season, and that filled up a whole lot of dams, and on top of that, it raises the water table. And then at the end of the wet season, we had another kind of like bout of rain that even made everything better. Dry riverbeds were flowing. It was that kind of wet season. But even still, it's starting to show that we're into the drier winter. And that's really important, especially for certain kinds of vegetation that rely on that kind of cyclical event. For example, grasses. Grasses have a life cycle that involves them, a critical part of it is drying up, collapsing, and then starting again. Rolling Trouble, you called those prison ponies. I'm not sure how they'll feel about that. But we're now looking at a lovely crocodile at the Olifants River. Whoa, this guy looks really nice. I love this angle because you can see that the sun is on the left side of his body there. And it's creating some really nice shadows that help us to see those osteoderms. Those are those little ridges, those scale-like structures. Essentially, they are scales. But more correctly, they are osteoderms. And essentially, derm refers to skin. So imagine a plate of skin, or a patch of skin, that's like fortified with some osteo, or bone. So think of them as bony patches of skin, that armor. And we can really get a great view of it right here. Thank you. Somebody has helped me and Rolling Trouble. You say that pied just means two or more colors in blotches. We only ever refer to black and white as pied. But I totally understand what you're saying. Ah, thank you, Nick City. So when I was thinking about pied, I was also thinking about magpies, because magpies are black and white as well. And so Nick City says, if I can actually decipher this, piebald, pie, from black and white plumage of the magpie. And then the bald is the white patch of the spot. Okay, so that's for magpie. And what is piebald? I don't know if I've ever heard piebald before. I love how we're all going on this deep dive together about pie. Is piebald something to do with horses? I remember something like that. But anyway, we will get to the bottom of it. And thank you all for chipping in and helping us out. I love it. This is one of the reasons that I love to do these shows. Because every time you ask something, it allows me to think of something differently, explain something differently, but also learn a lot from all of you as well. Community. Trainer Matt51, you say good morning from North Carolina. You're a little late today, Trainer Matt51, but it's okay. We started off with El Doño with some giraffe. Then we went to visit our black eagle. The little chick was there. And now we are at Tau. Oh, now we're at Olifants River, but we stopped off at Tau as well. Thank you, Kirsten. Kirsten is in the background and she says, A piebald or pied animal is one that has a pattern of unpigmented spots on a pigmented background of fur, feathers, or scales. So that goes back to what the other viewer was saying about pied just meaning two or more colors and blotches. Cool. I wonder why we only, or at least in terms of modern English, we're only using it for black and white. Deep dive. Love it. Much like this crocodile is, I think, very much enjoying collecting all that warmth and sunlight on his left side. You'll find that many animals, particularly small mammals and reptiles, at this time of the afternoon, it's winter, so the sun is setting a lot earlier, they're trying to collect as much heat as they can. And they'll do that by laterally exposing their sides where the sun can hit as much space as possible. Because if it was facing the front, the percentage of its body that the sun would hit and therefore heat would be much smaller than if it were on its side. So you'll find animals that are really wanting to heat up will position themselves either with the setting or the rising sun. They'll position themselves laterally to collect as much of that heat energy as possible. Oh, nice. We are off to the Crocodile now. And we've got a wildebeest that's just busy chewing. When I see wildebeest sitting like this, I mean, this is likely a bull, although it's much easier to tell if he stands up, but he's on his own, so that's an indication already. And when we're thinking about sexing animals, it's important to look at behavior too. For example, with elephants, I may get a feeling about the sex of an animal based on their behavior before I actually get to have a clear view of them. Now, when bulls are much older, then they get that rounded forehead, so that's kind of a nice way to just kind of tell quickly or take a quick educated guess. But the best way is always to have a look between the legs. But behavior is a great indicator as well. Any animal that hangs out in groups, females and offspring tend to make up the core of the group. So even if they are mixed herds, for example, with like buffalo and impala, when there's mixed herds, the core of the herd is still made up of females and their offspring. So if you're seeing a wildebeest on its own, an impala on its own, an elephant on its own, it's very likely to be a male. Now, there's obviously exceptions. You could look at this animal when it's transitioning from the waterhole back to its herd, or maybe it's a little lost. There's still those things to consider, but generally you want to also look at behavior when we're trying to sex animals. What have we got on the right side there? There's a bird. The movement of the head is telling me it's a hornbill. It's moving its head from side to side. I'm looking way on the other side of the bull, opposite to the wildebeest. Way on the right side of your screen, there's a bird that's moving around as well. Looks like it's a hornbill. While I can't see the color of its beak, I'm going to guess red-billed. Just because at least it looks dark. And even though we can't see it clearly, I mean, now we can see that really long bill, so we know it's a hornbill. But just the movement of the head was a giveaway. I mean, much like we were talking about looking at the behavior of an animal to try to sex it, you can also look at the behavior of an animal to try and ID it. Especially if you don't have a clear view. Now we can clearly see it's a hornbill, but it was moving its head from side to side with it close to the ground. Hornbills do that all the time in an attempt to catch prey, or leftovers sometimes. They'll shift a leaf litter from side to side, and because they've got that nice big long beak, they can do that quite effectively. And we can hear the gentle pinging of a blacksmith lapwing and a helmeted guinea fowl up the top there. Seems very peaceful at the Crocodile. You know, everyone just kind of going about their business, very chilled. Slight panic there with that guinea fowl, but there always is a bit of panic with a guinea fowl. I've never seen a completely relaxed helmeted guinea fowl. This wildebeest will spend his days defending his little territory, trying to schmooze any females that make their way into his territory, eating, swatting himself, trying to get rid of pests and parasites, and oftentimes will make friends with, well, I say make friends, I use that term loosely, but follow or be in and amongst other antelope and zebra. You'll often see a wildebeest with impala, or sometimes with some kudu, and quite often with some zebra as well. But for now, he's just chilling. Also probably trying to warm up, collect the last bit of sunlight and warmth. We've swapped over to the Ordonio cam now. There was some, I think I see it. There we go. There is an elephant. We will see it just now. It is hidden amongst the bushes. And unfortunately, it seems that we are focused on the grass in front of us, which is fine, because it's just going to make the elephant's reveal that much more dramatic. So it's kind of to the right of the screen. And there's no doubt it's going to come down to the actual waterhole. Elephants being so water dependent, and they'll never pass up a chance to have some nice, fresh, clean water. Something that Ordonio does offer. There we go. Can you see that movement there? Yes. Love me some Ellies. Vicha. Thank you. Ooh, there's another one. This is going to be a mouthful, everybody, but I love this deep dive. Vicha, you say, here's another one you haven't heard before. Skewbald. Okay, so we heard piebald earlier. Now we heard skewbald, which is an adjective. So in the 1950s, it was considered, or, show why 1650s, there we go. Having white or brown or some other colored patches spotted in an irregular manner. Okay, so skewbald and piebald both are kind of horse references, horse coat references. And so skewbald is white or brown. Cool. Oh wow, okay, we're going way back. This is like early 15th century references now. So skewbald comes from skewed, and skewbald of mixed colors, bald, or skew plus bald, having white patches. Love the deep dive, everybody. Well, I know what all of you are doing after this. going and researching pied. This is all because of you, Rolling Trouble. Going back to learning about our environment, you can see that the majority, even though the grasses are quite brown here at Old Donyo, there's still a lot of green. Very much green, in fact. And this whole area, oh, I think that elephant, am I seeing things, or was there more movement? No. This whole area seems to be quite, the water table seems to be quite high. The whole patch around the pan looks quite moisture rich or quite wet. And even if you look at the grass that's growing there, also very green. And we're back to see the little very white, very shiny, not shiny actually, but it looks like it's very shiny because of the whiteness, the little black eagle or the rose chick. I was hoping that the parents would come along as well. Also thinking about the color. If you think about the areas in which these eagles nest high up on cliffs, then this little chick would be very exposed to sun and heat. So if it were black, or even just had darker down, it would mean that it would absorb a lot of that heat. So the white could actually help to keep the chick at a nice temperature. Any animal that has a small body, or I should say any mammal that has a small body, has a tougher time thermoregulating. So tougher time, and we see it with babies as well, human babies. They're not great at thermoregulating. And that's because they have a whole lot of surface area and not a whole lot of mass. In the most simple way, you know, if you do some washing and you hang out a piece of clothing, it's going to dry much quicker if you spread it out than on a washing line than if you kept it in a pile. Because what you're doing when you're spreading it out is exposing all that surface area to the air and the sun, which is going to help evaporate all of the water. But in the same way, if you are very, very small, you can overheat quickly, and you can also get very cold very quickly. So this one is exposed to a lot of sunlight in its nest high up on the cliffs, and that whiteness will help reflect some of that heat and light. Yes, Rolling Trouble, you opened a can of worms. Thank you for taking ownership over that. But I love it. I love it. I like how we so kind of casually slipped into this big grand old chat about color, because it's such an incredible thing, and it's such an important thing. Light and color, how we perceive it, how it is produced, how it affects everything else in the environment. Amazing. And we have some elephants now at Tao. Interestingly, I've been seeing quite a lot of elephants on different cameras recently, and they can all look a little bit different. And I get asked quite often, why are these elephants red? Or why are these elephants white? Or why are these elephants brown? Because they can look really different. And it's just a result of the earth around them. Because we know that elephants dust bathe a lot. And they're constantly throwing the sand and the dirt on top of them. And so in a way they're carrying the soil in which they have been moving. They're carrying it on their backs. And we know in this part of Tao right here, the soil is pretty light colored. And so the elephants look quite light, and they kind of just keep their natural gray. But I like this idea of these big, really like magnificent creatures that are intelligent and are these engineers of this landscape. Sheer power. And I like this idea of them carrying the land on their back as they move through. Anyway, thank you all for another splendid time together. I hope you're all going to leave here now with your smile slightly larger and hopefully some curiosity ignited. And then you're going to go deep dive about Pied, and so am I. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining us, for your questions and comments as usual. I won't see you on Thursday, but I'll see you when I get back. Goodbye for now, everyone.